Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mindshifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rachma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
To the brightness within you and the truth that is rooted within me.
Hi, and welcome to Mindshifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. We'd love to hear your questions, your comments. Dr. Tim is already with us. David's not on there yet. And today is Memorial Day Celebration 199. And we do have a question that was sent to me by email, but we'll welcome Michael first and let him talk about that. Hey, Michael. Michael? Something's not happening there. Are you there?
I'm here, Jeanie.
Oh,
can you not hear
me? There you are.
Okay. I don't know what happened. I disappeared there for a moment. I did have my mute button unmuted, but hey, who knows what happens in the technological world. Anyway, we are delighted to be here to support you in learning the process and hopefully teaching the process of forgiveness. And our Memorial Day, Veterans Day honoring is about inviting people to eliminate the cause of war within themselves. You know, you can go all the way back into the ancient teachings, and they understood exactly what happened. And the book of James speaks about the cause of war. He says, don't you know that it comes from the war that happens within your members, in other words, inside of you? And so we're here to support you, assist you, and teach you how to let go of what's happening inside of you that might cause war, that might cause conflict, sadness, grief, pain, rage, fear, whatever's going on in your world. So we're here to support you in that process, and if you're not familiar with that conversation, then what we invite you to do is to go to our website, which is www.whyagain.com, and on the right-hand side, there's a link that says Download Worksheets. So we invite you to download those worksheets. Go to work with the process of forgiveness. Put the pen to the paper. The first 4 links under that section will give you the whole here's how forgiveness works process. And so we're glad to be here with you and supporting you in that process. Good morning, Dr. Tim, or good afternoon, pardon me.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
How are
We're
you,
here.
sir?
Doing quite well, thank you. Coming off of our first Mindshifters group up in the new location in Woodstock.
And how did it go?
Well, it was fabulous. It's an absolutely amazing upgrade from where the church has been and where we were meeting in the back of an architect's office prior to this. It's a beautiful facility. It's an old church, and they've renovated it, and it's just stunning. You're gonna love presenting there when you come back to town. The sanctuary can hold about 200 people, yet it seems an intimate setting because the pews are set in the stadium setting.
Wow.
And it's beautiful.
Cool.
They've got a beautiful banquet room area, and the group room is nice, and we were just rocking along. We watched the second half of The Circle of Life and How to Play It last night, And thanks to our friend Dave, who's in our group, we all had a printout of what you put on the board to follow along. He's got a double-sided, legal-sized printout of what you put on your lecture, so we can follow through the steps, and pretty amazing.
Well, that man is just a computer machine, isn't he?
He sure is, and he's a workhorse. So we had a very nice group, and I shared the worksheet, that the newest version that's on the website, with the definitions on the first page, and the second page with more room for notes. And I stepped them through the worksheet I did a week ago today that was so revealing for me about a faux pas I made in a testing situation that connected to something that happened when I was 5 years old, and I think it helped people really shift, see how the power of these two different emotions woven together can be so long-lasting. And I got a wonderful email from somebody who thanked me for introducing him to this work back in 2006, and then thanked me again for introducing him to the concept of 5 worksheets a day, because he said it's just really, really moving the process forward. So
that's awesome
stuff. Wonderful stuff.
How are you? I am good. I'm rocking along. I'm doing my 5 a day, and things are just moving. And before we get into the topic I was going to bring up, is there anything specific to report on the new worksheet format, or the group's experience of, or what happened in the group with the process last night?
I think that the overall comments were that people can see how this worksheet, because we introduced basically the same worksheet last week, and people's comments were the same, and they were saying they can see how it clears up the process more by explicitly talking about the goal that I hold, that either helps hide from me the pain I have resonated, or I'm using the goal to stir up the pain and blame it on somebody else. And the other thing that people like is the idea, I get the sighs and the groans when people read the part about I'm going to cancel and release and be willing to release all this dis-ease energy from all my relations and generations. So those are really good reminders, and they're getting a lot of good comments from people when they're doing the worksheets.
Cool. That's fabulous. Well, that's exactly what the worksheet redesign was designed for. And the thing that I was going to bring up is something that I'm sure that everybody's going to be very excited about, and that is that we've been getting a lot of really good feedback. We had sent the worksheet out to probably 25 people, and so I've been getting some really great feedback. And so there's going to be another shift in the worksheet, which I'm sure everybody will just be so excited about and love so much that they'll have an opportunity to get used to still a slightly different take on the process. And actually it's going to be around step 1, because the feedback I've been getting from people is that, well, this event really happened, and so why are you telling me it's a lie? It wasn't clear to people, even though the first line says, I have through denial trained my carbon-based memory to show me the lie that feelings and my giving up the experience of my essence love are caused by my trigger. And that's always been there. So, and that's the core. That's what we're looking to do. But then somehow the feedback I was getting was that was sort of getting lost as people got down to the step where they described the situation. Well, but this really happened. What are you talking about? It's a lie. So what's happening is that we're going to actually shift around what the 1, B, and C refer to, and it's going to be, I think, worded, again, in a way that's going to just clarify and make the whole thing crisper like it did with Step 5 especially. And so the new sheet will give that same idea that, the first step that are caused by my trigger, and then there'll be 1A, and then the instruction behind that in brackets is who or what seems to remove me from my experiencing myself as love, end bracket. So there's the instruction for 1A. And then the section where it says what my mind is telling me. So the next sentence starts out with, my mind is telling me that, and then there are brackets, so you get to select he, she, it, they. My mind is telling me that, let's say, it causes me to feel, and then now the feeling is going to be number 1B. And there's actually going to be a little bigger space. The spacing worked out better for this too. So that my mind is telling me that it causes me to feel, and then I identify 1B, my feeling. And then there's the instruction, my feeling, use a separate sheet for each. Recall all hostility and fear from internal corrupt data and indicate my carbon-based memory's use of sustained incoherence to build my painful reality. So it's the object of attention, and I've actually removed the words object of attention. It's just that such and such causes me to feel. My mind is telling me that such and such causes me to feel hurt, sadness, grief, whatever. And then when they, and now number 1C is now the situation, when they, go off on me like, a crazy person and rage and scream. So that I think it's going to be crisper that what we're looking to do is to recognize that my mind's lie is that this causes me to feel anything. And then go forward with D would be the same, the thought that I used to cause my feeling, et cetera, et cetera. So that number 1, I think, is going to open new clarity and a new space for going, oh yeah, this is about what's going on inside of me, my feelings. It's not about the situation. And the feedback I was getting was that in number 1, that was kind of understood, but kind of getting lost. So it's something that I've actually been rewriting and have done 3 or 4 worksheets on just to kind of really get a sense of it. And so it'll be on the website as soon as possible. And I think everybody's going to love it. I know that it opened a new space for me. We actually got a replacement printer from a company. We had a problem with our printer, and I spent 40 minutes of my morning trying to get the tracking number, which, logically they would have sent me if they were efficient or, just there in a sane way. And as I used the new worksheet on the printer, what that led to was how my dad wasn't there for me. And so that opened up a whole other file for me through doing a worksheet on trying to get a tracking number for my printer. It's interesting how the gifts come about. So it just leapt from one to the other, and that's certainly one of the things I love about the worksheet. If people will sit down and do them, really use them, it just takes you through file by file by file by file in the mind and how they're linked and how they're interconnected. It's always an interesting surprise, kind of like your surprise the other day, Tim, when you shared how you were doing a worksheet around being embarrassed at having made a faux pas at a meeting in your psychology work, and that clicked you right back to being 5 and your embarrassment around a young lady that you were planning to marry and have babies with. So it's amazing and awesome the way it all fits together and comes together.
Well, I look forward to seeing that new worksheet when it's available. And
it'll be available later today. I'm still playing with the design of it and spacing. I think I'm pretty much got it. So probably within the next hour or so, I'll probably do a couple more worksheets with it just to make sure, and then renovate the main worksheet and the supplement so there's more spacing. And we'll put it out there.
Great.
And I'll the people that were on the list, I'll go ahead and send. I'll send it, and if there's anybody that would like to receive it directly, if you just want to put in the chat room your email address, then Jeanie can give it to me, and we'll put it on the list, and it will go out.
Well, we've got some questions in the chat room.
Well, let's grab it. Well, I think we've got a caller. Let's maybe take our caller first. Jeanie said there was somebody who was on there right from the beginning, so let's go with our caller and say hello.
Well, the caller has actually disappeared, so if they'll call back in, that would be awesome. And before we go to the chat room, I did have someone email me, and so this is pretty cool. Anybody that's in the North Carolina area, there was a gentleman, he is hold on, I'm trying to flip over, Frederick Whitmire. And he's written a 3-page article on forgiveness, and in a lot of it has quoted Dr. Michael Ryce. And so the person actually wrote me and was like, can I have an outline of this article? So it's like we didn't write it, but this is great. So it's in the December issue of the National Triad magazine.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So anybody that happens to be in that area, and I'll email some people too and ask them if they'll grab some copies and send them to us. So it looks like this gentleman is in, it's in the Greensboro, North Carolina area. So,
oh, cool. Well, we'll have to connect him in with Brad and the support group there.
Yeah. So I don't know, he may have, looked in their database and we don't have him in there, so I'm not real sure how he connected with all of it, but he's quoted you tremendously on the 3 pages and has actually said in it that much of the information was gathered from Dr. Michael Ryce, and he goes on and tells who you are. And he's a medical practice consultant, team trainer, and executive coach. So that's cool that he's getting it out there.
Fabulous.
And,
well, let's make sure to forward that to Brad and the support group there in Greensboro, and if you'd forward it to me too, and I'll touch in with him and say hello and thank him and see if there's any way we can support him. That's fabulous.
Awesome. And we do have a caller, but let's catch the question in the chat room. Nicole writes and says that she has a friend that she quit talking to because she didn't agree with how the lady was raising her child. And then that there's actually a mutual friend that is still in contact with both of them and tells her that this child now walks around naked and is given a lollipop with his meals in hopes that'll help give him incentive to eat. And she says, that makes me angry. How do I address this in myself? And did I do the right thing by cutting communications with her? And so what I told her, and then I said I was going to get you to address it, was that cutting off communication was avoidance of what it brings up for her, and that it doesn't make her angry. It brings up the anger that's within her and giving her an opportunity to heal the anger and the pain, and that anger is always an internal drug to hide the pain, and that she might want to look that perhaps it could be fear. I don't know. So if you would like to address cutting off that communication and how she needs to do a worksheet on that one.
Sure. Well, a situation like that can run into so many so-called files in the mind, and as we're just talking about, this new step 1 hopefully clarifies that this situation doesn't cause me anything. It resonates what's in me, and now I'm getting clear that this is mine, and I can experience the same situation, and instead of being in the cloud of some form of hostility or fear, drugging myself with anger against my pain, I can be clear with it. So some of the places I could certainly imagine a situation like that going would be, this person doesn't respect me, honor me, or support me. So you might want to look in your life as to how does it look like for people not to support you. Go back to your family, your childhood. How does it look like my life for people to not be there for me or to criticize me, to condemn me? And what will happen is as you do the forgiveness worksheet, as you actually put the pen to the paper, you'll collapse the anger. That'll be the first step. When you collapse the anger, you'll get in touch with what's underneath it. And let me just, bring that home with the worksheet I was talking about that I did with us doing this new worksheet. So we're getting a new printer. The company has agreed to send us a printer, and they send me an email confirming it with a tracking, or not a tracking number, but a reference number. I call the company. The printer doesn't show up on time. I call the company, and I give them their reference number, and they're, oh, we can't find anything on that. So 40 minutes later, I finally, after 4 phone calls, had 2 disconnects, that whole game, and my frustration level is getting pretty high. And so I do a worksheet on my frustration about these people not being, reasonable and there to support their customers. So as I collapse my frustration around that, the next thing that surfaces is how, as a kid, my dad wasn't there for me. At least that was my reality. And the hurt that I had, that I thought that meant there was something wrong with me. So I do that worksheet, and then I start to see that my conclusion that I don't deserve it's got nothing to do with me. It's Dad, who is so wrapped up in his life and busy, and he's designed a whole factory and managing and running this special steel. He's a steel worker, and he's running this special steel that's only run in one factory in the world, and that's the one he designed, the special kind of steel that they were able to run. And so what I was able to see in that was that my judgment about myself not being worthy of his attention was just, he was so overwhelmed in his life. He did 7 days a week, 9 days a week, 18 hours a day. I can remember as a kid, one of the repeating dreams that I had. We lived on across from this factory. We could look out over the water. There was a bay, and the factory spewing its garbage was on the other side of the bay. Maybe I need to do a work on the sheet on that factory spewing garbage. Anyway, it was on the other side of the bay. And I remember as a kid having this recurring dream, and this monster would come over from across the bay and take my father. Well, of course, it's pretty obvious now. I didn't know that as a 5 or 7 or 10-year-old, but now it's pretty obvious that this factory represented a monster that stole my father from me. So that came out of doing a worksheet on a printer and my frustration about it. So that's just kind of an example of where you might find the pain that underlies. In our codependence to interdependence workshop, one of the things we point out is that all hostility, all anger, all rage is a drug. It's an internally produced drug that anesthetizes us against feeling something. When you collapse that drug, when you let it loose, you'll drop right into what's underneath it. Now, when you drop into what's underneath it, it might be pretty painful. I know for me, when I dropped into that thing and collapsed the thing around the printer, the next thing that happened was this core pulsing pain right in the center of my chest. That was the next piece for me. And then as I breathed, I was able to touch in and get in touch with, oh, that's what this is about. And that's a skill, by the way, that you'll develop as you do worksheets, is that there'll be signals that your structure will give you. This so-called body isn't a body, it's an energy system. And every energy we've never dealt with is stored somewhere in the system. And when we go into denial, and in denying, we dissociate from something, we lose our ability to decode what that means, what that's about. One of the other new steps in the worksheet is in number 5B, where it now reads, I invite that higher power to not only restore me to love, but to heal my denial and the capacity to generate whatever the feeling is. So as you do that, you'll let go of the drug, and it'll take time. You'll develop this skill. If you commit to doing the worksheets, do 5 a day for the next 40 days. And as you commit to that, what will happen is you'll develop more and more skill about being able to read, decode, understand the information that you've hidden and locked away inside yourself, and that has perhaps been locked away for 1,000 generations. So that would be my feedback on that question. Does that stir any more thoughts in the chat room?
Nothing else
Jeanie,
is being said. Nothing else is being said, but we do have a caller.
Okay, well, let's invite our caller in.
Area code 336. You're on the air.
336, welcome to the show. Give us a name and where are you calling from?
Hi, it's Paula from Greensboro.
Well, hey, Paula, welcome.
Hi. I just wanted to say, I read that article Frederick Whitmire wrote, and I've got the article in my car, so whoever wants it, if they're close by, I can drop it off. But he is Dr. Vaughn, Elizabeth Vaughn's significant other, and she came to the Still Point Breathing and Mind Shifter workshop that day. So she shared it with him, I guess, and he wrote the article, so it was really good.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, now I know who it is now. Yeah.
Yeah.
He came on Friday night. His wife came Friday night, and he came Saturday. I think she was taking care of the kids. They drove down from somewhere outside of Greensboro.
No, she's a doctor in Greensboro, and she was the one, she sat on the back row. She was by herself. He wasn't there, and she doesn't have children. So she was the one, you might remember, because it was so funny. You know how we picked the numbers for the Mind Shifter exercise?
Right.
And hers was, I just started laughing because I know her really well, and it was that her work, she wants her work to be recognized in the world and everybody giving her accolades for her work as a doctor, you know.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were two physicians thinking it was a gentleman, but this is a woman then.
Yeah, and Frederick Whitmire is her significant other, but I didn't see him there that day. I mean, that's why I guess she went home and shared it with him, and he wrote the article. But
is her name Elizabeth?
Elizabeth.
Oh, okay. I know who she is.
Yeah.
Dr. Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Cool. Well, if you can grab some and save us some coffee.
I will.
Yeah, well, do we have an email of it, Jeanie?
I have an electronic copy, yes.
Okay, so maybe we can just post it on the website so anybody that wants to grab it can grab a copy of it.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you for letting us know that, Paula.
All
so
right.
How goes your process? Anything we can do to support you today?
Well, yesterday, I can't remember the lady that called in, Susan, maybe, that the thing where her dad had gotten really angry as a teenager when she came in the door and there was no honesty. I mean, you know, lying about things. How deep it went. Like, man, that one just really got me because, I mean, I've got stuff like that going on with me. I mean, and it's just so complicated. It's like a big ball, right? Me and my dad stuff and my mom. But, no, I just appreciated how quickly she was able to get to some of the broken I call them broken promises, but, you know, things that happened where all that pain came from. You know, especially when it just slipped out of her mouth about her having to, you know, tell stories to her mom to protect her dad from him seeing somebody else, you know?
Right. Well, and that's exactly what we're talking about when we're saying that you'll learn to decode that stuff. All of that stuff is written in our genetics. It's been written for 1,000 generations. And when you actually develop the skill, you know, she's been doing, I think she just shared that she just finished her 200 worksheets last week, and she's still doing 5 a day. So she's been doing the work of decoding that every day and developing the skill. And when you do that, it's just like you know exactly what it is. Otherwise, what happens is there's so much unconsciousness in the things we've dissociated from that when it comes up, we just go unconscious. It's just like, blah, I don't know what's going on. I feel terrible. I have no idea. I don't know what it's about because we've been dissociated for so long. So that's one of the benefits of doing the worksheets on a regular basis, daily work, that you get to work through those layers and you are more capable of getting right to the core of what's going on as you develop that skill. It's literally a skill, and it's a skill that, interestingly enough, has been devoid in our culture, has been avoided in our culture, has been removed from our culture for the last 1,000 generations. I mean, if there are 0.0001% of people on planet Earth in the last 10,000 years that have been able to do that, I would think that would be a very high number. And so it's really about developing a skill that probably hasn't been in your bloodline. You know, most of us have things in our bloodline like the skill of the ability to rage at somebody, the skill of the ability to cut people off in communication, the skill and the ability to avoid and leave. You know, they're the kinds of skills that are in most people's genetics. And this is a new one that's being introduced that has probably hardly shown up, if it's shown up in, you know, thousands of years. So it's pretty cool to watch it accelerating and happening for more and more people, that critical mass coming forward. It's just awesome to be part of it.
It is. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for your call. You have wondrous, happy holy days, and we'll look forward to the next time we hear from you.
All right.
Blessings. Take care. Bye-bye. So anything else happening in the chat room, Jeanie, Dr. Tim? Any thoughts around that whole conversation from either of you fine folks?
Well, there's no response. Actually, Nicole's disappeared from the chat room, so I hope that she caught that answer. And there is another question. Could you please ask how I can heal my thyroid and kidney stones? My body is not as fit as my spirit drags me down.
Well, let me just say that when we ask a question, just based on the fact that whoever was in the chat room asking that question left, my suspicion is that probably, and this is pretty normal, that the answer, when truth shows up, the stress internally goes up so much. It's like, no, this can't be true. I'm used to blaming them for my anger, and that's just the way it is. It's their fault. So when the truth starts to show up, it's like, okay, I'm out of here. And sadly, that's when a lot of people, when they're right on the verge of healing, that's when a lot of people run away and disappear. So if you would, Jeanie, would you read that question again about the thyroid?
Yes, she says, could you please ask how I can heal my thyroid and kidney stones? My body is not as fit as my spirit drags me down.
Okay. I didn't get the connection. I'm not quite understanding your words. What's the connection between the thyroid and the kidney stones? I didn't quite understand that, sweetie.
I'm assuming that I just read it exactly word for word, so I'm assuming, Angel, if you're on there, you can comment, or you can call in, 646-200-4169, that she has thyroid issues and kidney stone issues, and she's wanting to know how she can heal those issues. And then her next line, her statement is, she says she's still here. The next line is that her body is not as fit, that her spirit drags her down. So I'm assuming that, Angel, are you connecting that your spirit being maybe not at a level that it should be, that your body is following, or can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, and if you wanted to call, if you've got the space to do that, that would be awesome, because then we can just chat straight up about it. But kidney stones are actually a fairly simple thing to get rid of. You know, when you live in a place where there's hard water and you boil water, you end up with calcium in the bottom of the tea kettle or what have you. And or you see there's white slime growing on your shower or around the faucet head. So that's hardness in the water. Well, of course, if it does it in your tap and such, it's going to do it in your body. And so what do you do if you've got calcium buildup in your tea kettle? You pour a little bit of vinegar in, you let it sit for a little while, it dissolves calcium, you pour it out, and you got a nice shiny new tea kettle again. Well, it's not much different. There's actually an ancient naturopathic remedy called switchel. And switchel is live apple cider vinegar, not the dead stuff you find at the grocery store that's been cooked, and so it's dead. You need something alive with enzymes in it. So it's fermented apples. There's a good brand called Bragg's, B-R-A-G-G''S, apple cider vinegar. You can get it at the health food store. So you take the live apple cider vinegar, you take a glass of water, a good size, maybe a 12-ounce glass of water, put 2 tablespoons, maybe 3 to taste in the water, and then you add a little bit of honey, preferably Manuka honey, because again you've got lots of enzymes in Manuka honey to balance the tartness of the vinegar. So when you do those 2 things in a drink, and you can make it up by the gallon and just drink it all day, what happens is you're flushing out the pipes. Literally, your body, your whole structure is a series of pipes, and if you're putting excessive minerals in through water, a lot of people talk about drinking mineral water. Well, if you look at what's on the shower filter, that's the little rocks that are in the mineral water. Now, if you can go out and chew rocks off the ground and get minerals out of it, then, hey, you could probably get your minerals out of mineral water. There's a lot of people who promote mineral water to get minerals. Excuse me. Unless a mineral goes through a plant process, it cannot be well absorbed, easily absorbed, usefully absorbed by the human cell. And, you can't chew rocks and you can't get your minerals, or at least you're going to get a very minimal quantity out of your mineral water. And what will tend to happen if there's excessive, it'll tend to build up and clog the pipes. So switchel tends to loosen that. And you may find that may also help with the thyroid, in that, again, it's a series of pipes. It's a series of, tubules. And if it's being lined with garbage, then starting to dissolve and move the garbage out might assist and allow it to step back and function. Now, as far as emotionally, the thing I would ask you to look at is both of those organs have to do with anger. When we are not allowed to feel, experience, and deal with, or not shown how to forgive our anger, it tends to get locked into the thyroid gland and create interference there. And then, pardon my French, but the kidneys have to do with urinating. And if we're, as the vernacular of the culture says, pissed off, then what happens is that the kidneys tend to begin to dysfunction because we don't know how to forgive as to our anger. And remember, the forgiveness conversation is not about letting somebody else off the hook for what's happening inside of you. Forgiveness is how you go inside yourself and remove what never belongs. So, and you want to be holy, and holy doesn't mean crawling around on your hands and knees with your hands folded. That's not holy. Holy has to do with working on all levels. So as you do something like switchel, which is taking care of things on the physiological level, will assist in that regard. If you don't ever forgive what it is that keeps you in the pattern, then it doesn't matter what you do physically, it's not going to happen. And when you forgive what's in the pattern, then the tendency will be to be attracted to. You may have lived your whole life right next door to the solution, and there's a sign on the guy's lawn next door that tells you exactly the solution to your problem. But for 40 years, you go out the house, you walk by, and you never see the sign. In your brain, it's not there because your structure says, I have a pattern where I don't look at that. The mind is evidential. We literally don't see it, and if we do see it, we don't hear it. If we don't hear it, we can't take its advice. So once you undo the pattern, you walk out the door, and the first thing your eyes will fall on is this sign in the guy's yard next door that says, I have this product that takes care of this. And you'll go, oh, great, right next door. I think I'll go get some. Thanks for putting that out there today. And he will say to you, actually, that sign's been out there for all 40 years that you've lived here next door to me. But until we're ready, we can't see it. It's just not going to show up in our reality structures. So that would be my input on those issues. Dr. Tim, with the work you've been doing, do you have any input for the question on the thyroid and kidney?
Well, I would just say, echo everything you said, and then just say that doing the worksheets or any good forgiveness process starts to reveal how different emotions get wrapped around other, say, less dramatic emotions. And there was a really good example in the worksheet that I shared last week where humiliation and mortification got wrapped up with having a crush or an affection for someone. And that was so completely hidden from me. But clearly, as I get farther from that worksheet, I get to see how that's affected all these different relationships in my life. So if this person starts out and starts forgiving as to the anger, they're likely to find a whole raft of other emotions wrapped around it that will produce even more healing and loosening. So just start doing the worksheets. It's a godsend, and I get probably 2 or 3 a month people thanking me for introducing them to this work. So I can't say enough good about it.
Okay,
yeah, and as you introduce others, the tendency is to build yourself a community that supports you in doing that, and that is, you know, all your life, all the times you've been mortified and such, of course, that other stuff has been underlying it, but it's the fact that you're doing your work and you're standing in a space of willingness that finally let go, oh, that's the connection. Now I can deal with this rather than, you know, being stuck in it. The same with, you know, as I was speaking about the worksheet on the printer. It's like when you're ready to open that, then you find the illness. Jeanie, you were starting to say something, sweetie?
Yeah, and my battery's about to die on my phone here, but she writes back and says that she doesn't feel angry at anyone personally, that she's pretty in tune with her body. She feels like she's under some other kind of attack. And then she says her husband's the one who has the ghost that he hadn't dealt with. I wrote back to her that possibly her body is trying to tell her something she's in denial of, because if she was really past all that, she would have no attachment, and her body wouldn't be trying to tell her something on it.
I'm in 100% agreement with that. It's all done with smoke and mirrors. And if I'm experiencing a dysfunction and I'm in dissociation, there's something I'm not dealing with. And that is only true, you know, maybe 125 or 130% of the time. So if you have doubts about that, it's only true that often. So, but
right.
You know, it's kind of a bummer, you know. It's like the good news and the bad news. I can go in and deal with this, but then, gee, there's a big part of me that says I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to look at that. I don't want to feel that. That's why we hid it away in the tissue structure and created energy patterns that block. Literally, you know, Ma Bell grows a crystal in a laboratory, and in that single crystal stores 2 trillion bits of information. We grow crystals in our structure. As I said earlier, we've got this series of pipes. In essence, that's what your heart is, that's what your lung is, that's what your liver is, that's what your kidneys are, that's what your blood system are, that's what your alimentary canal is. It's all a series of pipes. When we put something in that interferes with the energy flow, what tends to happen is that grows into crystals. For instance, a crystalline deposit that everybody's pretty familiar with is arthritis. So arthritis is a solidified form of energy that tends to block flow. Well, when we put something we don't want to deal with in a crystal, that something is still vibrating. It's still moving inside of that crystal. Oh, excuse me. And when it's moving inside of that crystal, the tissue surrounding it is impacted by the field set up by that crystal. And there's, I would offer, where our diseases come from. So, you know, in the same way that you have a crystal watch, how does your watch run off of a crystal? Well, the crystal vibrates, and that sets up the mechanism to operate. Precisely the same thing happens when we put anger, hate, rage, fear, grief, pain, sadness, loss into particular tissue. Like for me, when I was sharing about that printer issue that I was working on, what I noticed first and foremost was this kind of deep pulsing pain in my chest. That's where the first notification came from. I'm getting to the core of something. Take a few breaths, and that crystal starts to open. It's not feeling good when that starts to open, but you can open it all. You can work through it all. You can forgive it all. You can remove it all. And your structure is not going to signal you with pain or disease unless there's something there that doesn't belong there. Once you put an energy into your structure that does not belong in your structure, and I don't care if it's a thought, a feeling, or a physical toxin, the same way as, somebody takes arsenic, they go, ow, ooh, oh, pain, hurt. And, mental arsenic, hate, rage, fear, anger, grief, pain, sadness, blame is no different. It does exactly the same thing. And so as we let ourselves become aware of that, then we're able to work through it, move through the other side of it. And that's what we're here to support everybody in doing. Any thoughts on that?
Anybody there? Michael, Jeanie?
I'm yes, sir.
Okay, I just went dead, and Jeanie said her phone just died.
Right, I just took her charger over to her so that she'd be able to continue the conversation with us. So she's just plugging it in, and
okay,
got a little distracted by the time delay on the computer.
Okay, so the response is that overall stress from being here on this third density reality, when I really want to be in my true vibrational frequency of what God intended us to be, Jeanie suggested worksheets, and the response was, who has time for worksheets? I have a full-time job, 3 kids, etc. All the work I do is internal and spiritual. I do use crystals, but I'm still a little grasshopper who's just opened her eyes fully just a few short years ago.
Yeah. So my input would be that you are exactly where the Creator intended you to be, in this third dimensional place that was called the Garden of Eden. We're the ones who put the garbage in the garden and said, oh, this isn't a place where I want to be. Excuse me, you are precisely where you are designed to be. And when you embody that being that you are, and in this work we define human life as hold a newborn child, which I'm going to get to do next week because my daughter's having her baby. Actually, today it looks like is going to happen. But anyway, you are this awesome presence of love, and what happens is we take on roles that keep us so busy that we don't get to deal with our genetics and our own experiences. And I'd offer that busyness is a drug. So here's my invitation. If you go back into the ancient Orthodox teachings, the whole idea was to incarnate as a spirit being, that you came into your form. Now, most people never enter their forms because there's so much pain and trauma from all the generations that they're like, I'm not going in there. And so your work, should you choose to do it, is to clean from your form, from your genetics, from your bloodline. Go back and, you listen, I think I shared the other day the quote from, I don't even remember what book it is, but it says, look to the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth, for we know nothing. We're repeating the patterns of the generations. And so my input to you is you don't have time not to do your work. Elsewise, here's what will happen. Everything that your parents and their parents and their parents didn't deal with, you're going to hand on to those 3 kids because you refuse to deal with it. You've got a story about why there isn't time and why you can't do it. And, my friend, you don't have time not to do it. Those babies deserve to experience their mother as the awesome, active presence of love, to experience their father as the awesome, active presence of love, and to experience each other as that. But as long as we say, I'm not going to deal with what's going on in my genetics, in my emotional body, then what we do is we pass it off to the next generation. Denial is the key. James, 2,000 years ago, said, come out of your denial. You have pain, you have turmoil, you have trauma. You're in a state, according to what you just shared, of some parts of your structure degenerating. Own what's in there. Make the time to work through them, you will free not only your predecessors, you'll free yourself. You'll free not only yourself, you'll free your children, their children, their children, and their children. That's the gift you're giving by saying, instead of blaming something outside of me for what's going on inside of me, instead of I want to be somewhere else, which is just the good old leaving issue, that's one of the biggest issues on planet Earth. There's a part of me that's resisting being here. Why? Because I have something in my form I don't want to deal with. I want to blame my husband. He's the one with the problem. I want to blame I want to. So we invite you to come home. Take responsibility for what your physiology produces. And as you start to do that worksheet, you don't have time not to do it. You'll work through that, and your babies will benefit in ways you and I can't even fathom or imagine at this moment.
Okay, she says she understands and she knows she was just whining. And Jeanie also says that area code 607 is holding.
Awesome. Well, we're delighted to be here to support you and to forgive whining. So that would be one of your first worksheets, is yourself as the object of attention. And here I am whining, and how do I feel about that? Well, it kind of helps me feel better about things if I can whine about them. And so what's my goal for myself? And, go through the process, and what you'll do is you'll get rid of that as a cover story and all the other ones, and you'll open your whole family system to healing. And remember that this is probably the first time in 1,000 generations that the understanding of this principle is coming forward on planet Earth, that we can actually do this. And so that's our support for you. 607. Jeannie's going to hit the button and put you on the air. Where are you calling from? Give us a name.
It's Richard in Ithaca.
Hey there, Richard in Ithaca. How do you be, sir?
I'm doing fine. I didn't get a chance to hear much of your show today, but I caught the last conversation, so that was great. Got a joke for you, though. You ready for a good physics joke? Hello?
We're here. Go ahead, Richard.
Share your joke with us. What do you got for us, Richard?
All right. So everybody's probably heard about the potential discovery of the Higgs boson particle, right?
Yes.
So why do they call it the God particle?
Tell us, why do they call it the God particle?
It holds mass.
Oh, very cool. Very cute.
Enjoy your day.
Probably some density there.
There you go.
We bless you.
Okay, we have another caller, area code 541.
Richard works in the physics lab at, I think it's Cornell, is it? So the physics game is good. That's a good one, holds mass. All right. By the way, the word mass, if you go back, the whole idea of liturgy, which is what the original word was that was expressed as mass. The word liturgy means, it doesn't mean people being forced by some authority to come to church so that they get their share of pay, and you got to come X number of times per year or you're in deep trouble and you're going to go to a fiery place. The word liturgy, in its origins in Aramaic, means our common work. We come together in community. This is liturgy. We're doing liturgy right here, right now in this show. And that's our ongoing process, is we're coming together to do our common work. This is what it was originally designed to be. Unfortunately, it became a head trip because, hey, who wants to deal with all that pain anyway? So, area code 541. Was that Jeanie?
Hi there, Michael and Jeanie. It's Carolyn.
Hey, Carolyn, welcome to the show. I got your picture yesterday, and you look awesome.
Well, thank you. My arms do.
Yeah, you look. I'm not going to arm wrestle you. I know that.
That's called determination.
There you go.
Anyway, I am so appreciating this work. A friend of mine at the gym this morning, actually, who really needs this work very badly, has multiple physical problems, and I have given her the same advice over and over and over, and she just gets hysterical with it. And when I drove away, I just, was so triggered. And I'm seeing clearly now with doing this work how I get triggered by other people, and I know why I got triggered, and so I'm going to do a worksheet on it later. So I just am just full of appreciation for what I'm learning.
Well, we actually had a woman at Heartland several years ago, and she called them trigger sheets rather than worksheets, and which might be a good direction for us to go, because that's it exactly. My trigger does this, and I think that they cause something to happen to me, and so. The worksheet you might want to do around that issue of presenting the work to someone is, not being honored, being dissed, somebody who you're there to support and they, take away your glory. Might be lots of things there to do worksheets around. So that.
Well,
awesome.
I think what the trigger is that my daughter has had unbelievable health challenges. Terrible, and she doesn't listen to me. She thinks I'm a crackpot. So I think that's what this woman triggered, that my daughter doesn't listen to me either.
There you go. So then how far back in your life, I bet you can remember a time when you were pained in the same way you are now about not being listened to, and that was before your daughter was ever conceived, before you ever met your husband.
I can remember the moment.
There you go. So there's your core worksheet. There's where to go. You can go directly to that and clear that one out, and up will come a whole new level of clarity and power and the lightness of being.
Well, I just feel so much better doing this work, Michael, and coming on your phone calls and reading your book, and so thank you both so much. So I'm leaving Monday. I'm going to send you an email just to remind you to put me in the light, and thank you.
Well, I'm sure he's saying you're welcome. We can't hear Michael right now, but
thank
you. Thanks for the call.
Darned old phone, it just does what I tell it to do instead of what I want it to do. So I had to mute on. So yes, we are there to support you, and we'll be holding the space on Monday as you head there and take your stack of worksheets. And as I said in the email back to you, I suggest you might want to up your commitment to 5 a day the next few days as you're heading there, and then while you're there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm getting some copied today, so that's a good idea.
Fabulous. All right.
Thank you so much.
If you've got access to, Carolyn, if you've got access to the internet, we're going to have that new version on a little later this afternoon, so you might catch that and print that one. It's the next level of clarity on it.
Well, hopefully maybe Julie can bring some. I have no way to print it. So anyway, love to you all. And
okay, you can also go to the library and print at the library or Kinko's or sometimes Office Depot has a computer department. You go in and for $1 for 10 minutes or something, you can rent a computer and just jump on whyagain.com and go to the right-hand side, download worksheets. 6th link down is what you click on, and then the second link will be the newest worksheet.
Okay.
Or just print one off, and get a journal and journal the whole thing out.
That's a good idea.
Awesome. Well, we're down to about 20 seconds left before our outro, so I'm going to say thank you for being with us. Thank you for supporting us and making an awesome show. And bring a stranger with you tomorrow, and we'll look forward to hearing from you. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeanie, who present that internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.